Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Let's Design Diablo. This is episode 9, in which we work on the angel and demon at the bottom and the background texture there. And I think we finally get to a point where we're making some very significant progress on that background texture, as well as the fact that the angel and demon issue of where they are coming out of the background sort of starts to make more sense. We show a bit more of them, and so let's get into it. So this is where we left off last time, and it's really not bad. I think it looks very unresolved, though, on the bottom right and on the bottom left, where the skill icons currently are. Also, the texture in the bottom bar also feels a bit unresolved, although it does appear to be going in the right direction. On the bottom left, we have some red blood color, which mirrors the color of the mana health globe. And on the bottom right, we have some blue color, which mirrors the texture or color of the mana globe. And so we're using, that's an idea that we've been playing with for a while, but in this video you'll see that we go away from it temporarily. We brought in this new, it's actually an old ornament, a horizontal bar, thinking that that may be a good element to start thinking about using. And it definitely is. Don't think we use it to great effect here, although it could be wrong. But we definitely do use it in the future. So we're starting to see some of the assets being brought in that we'll use in future videos to produce a bottom bar that's a little bit more in its finished state. But just moving around to see where it works, where it doesn't work, etc. That's kind of a cool idea, putting it there. These aren't significant. Putting something there is nice, but the real problem we need to solve right now is what to do with this background, how to solve the issue with the angel and demon looking like they're sort of appearing out of nowhere, and how to frame the skill icons on either side. So we're just messing around right now with some preliminary ideas. The juices are not quite flowing yet, so the idea is just to get them to do that. And sometimes moving around stuff, bringing in new assets, and just brainstorming is a helpful process. This is an old design that I did many, many years ago before Diablo 3 came out. And I still really like it. I wish that the game ended up looking a little bit more like that and a little bit less like Diablo 3 ended up looking. But we know all about that, and that's okay. But I'm bringing in some fresh assets from that design that I did a while back because the ones that we had here were sort of manipulated to death, and I just wanted some fresh versions of those assets. But most of the time we do need to make them brighter, and so that's what I'm doing with the levels filter there. And also thinking about how to separate the skill icon from the bar. Perhaps that bright divider could be a solution to that problem. And what we're trying to do here is make it look as though the crack or the rock texture is coming in front of that separator to kind of break that plane. It's not bad, although I don't think it's firing on all cylinders, that idea. But it definitely could work. Again, we run into the issue of how to do something similarly effective on the right-hand side that doesn't look symmetrical, but also doesn't look totally different. So playing with also the way that the background to the skill icon is working there. We want that to fit. We want the skill icon to fit properly in that space. So some editing to the way that icon background kind of expands outward is sometimes necessary. So that's what we were doing there. And we're just putting it at the bottom to see what it looks like. And I think it really does look cool. Definitely unresolved still. Definitely a lot of issues to work through. But, as long as you're heading in the right direction, which I think we are, there is every reason to be optimistic about it. So I really like breaking the plane like that. With that texture coming up out in front, kind of feels more natural. And it's very for things to look perfect is actually very unnatural. Things in the real world don't look perfect. They're asymmetrical. They have dings, dents, scratches, and especially something in the Diablo world should look that way. So when you see interfaces for these types of games that are trying to be imperfect and trying to look sort of medieval or old and scary and demonic and dark, but yet every corner has the same exact round edge. Every divider looks exactly the same. That really ruins the really sort of breaks the fantasy for me. And so what we're trying to do is create an interface where the player really feels like they're in this dark, disturbed, imperfect world. And that's nice. That little area for the skill icon looks cool. So we're trying to create an interface that doesn't break that fantasy for the player. And I think that's what a lot of games are missing in terms of the interface itself versus the gameplay area. A lot of effort is put into the gameplay area to create the right tone, but not a ton of effort actually. Well, I shouldn't say not a ton of effort. A lot of people work really hard on these interfaces, but something that could be improved, I feel like, in almost 100% of the cases, is a dedication to making it look asymmetrical, imperfect, to mirror the world in which you've gone to great lengths to create in the gameplay area. I'm playing a little Fallout 76 right now, and it's a game that doesn't get great reviews, but I wanted to try it because it seemed kind of like an interesting idea. But what you see there is a game in which the developers have worked, and artists and everyone have worked together really hard on the world itself. And I really think that they did a nice job on, for the most part, what the gameplay area looks like, what you interact with in the game, in the world. There are balance issues and all that, but putting all that aside, from an artistic perspective, the gameplay area, the world looks awesome. It's really cool. But the interface makes no sense. I mean, the Pip-Boy is an interesting thing, and that's really cool because you sort of bring up this item, this object that your character is actually looking at. So setting that aside, which I think is really cool, the the heads-up display, the compass, the map, I just don't get it. Like, it's just line art. It really doesn't. It takes away so much from the atmosphere of the rest of the game, and it's there all the time. You can't escape it. So anyway, that little rant, all that to say that what the player sees in the interface should match the tone and the quality and all the hard work that goes into creating the game itself, the atmosphere of the game itself. So along those lines, we are trying to work really hard to create that type of atmosphere, and it's really a lot about textures and making those textures feel natural, especially when you're working with maybe like a rock texture or something. You really want to, it really can't be polished. It has to look a little bit, a lot. It has to look rugged. And so that's what we're looking for in these textures. And we've just sort of hit on something that you're going to see as we move forward, and that's that texture on the bottom left to the left of the demon. I really like how it's, I don't know, it just conveys the right amount of sort of being cracked. And now we're also making a really important move here, which is to move the demon down. So in doing so, we are on the path to solving that issue of what happens. Why is that demon and angel sort of coming up out of nowhere? Well, they're not now coming up out of nowhere. He looks sort of chiseled out of the stone itself in the background. And this is sort of the design, move, inspiration idea that the last few streams have been building toward, and we're going to work to perfect this. Perfect is not the right word. We're going to work to, continue to move this in the right direction. So next question is, how do we make the rest of the interface adapt to this move, which I think is really important, moving that demon down. The health globe now is way too, well, it's not necessarily too big, but it's just up too high. The demon doesn't really make sense to be, like the wings are, if you move the health globe down, the wings would be way up above the top of the health globe, or the health globe would be cut off at the bottom. That's really the problem. They'll actually remember if we end up making the globe smaller. I think I try to avoid that because a number of streams ago, I think maybe it was the second one, we spent the whole time almost making the mana and health globes bigger because we felt like they weren't prominent enough. So I don't want to go back to making them smaller again. But so the question is, how does everything fit together if they're to remain that size? So a lot of times when you make a big move like this, you have to hide a lot of the little details that made where it was before, made that work as well as it did. And that means in this case, temporarily hiding all those little ornaments. And so it's just about getting the major things in the right place now. Where does the demon and the angel, where do they come? Where are they vertically? Where is the health and mana globe vertically? How big are those items? What are the shadows looking like on the health globe from the demon and the angel? And sort of, do we have to recrop anything? And the answer to almost all those, the answer to the last question is yes. And all of those issues are ones that we have to work on. But it's fun now. There's some inspiration. There's like an idea out there that has value. So it's really fun to have made a sort of breakthrough is like a big, it's too impactful of a word, but definitely made a step in the right direction. So just almost have to get everything else out of the way, hide all the major components just to make this bottom left part work now. So we're gonna do that, and it's gonna take a little bit of time, but we do make some relatively quick progress forward here. I'm just on stream talking about how this move solves that problem, and thinking about how to get everything in the right place. So you definitely don't want the health globe there. That doesn't make any sense. So we need to do something, and you'll see what we end up doing. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, so we move everything up, and we show more of the demon that was shown before. So I think end up keeping the mana and health globe relatively in the same place vertically as it was. We're just moving the demon. We're just showing more of the demon. We're not moving him down really anymore. We're just showing more of him because there is more there. And it's really neat, him especially coming out of the background. You'll see that this whole idea works better, of him being sort of chiseled into that background, works better on the left than it does on the right. And that, I still think it does still work well on the right with the angel. It's just that she's not as sort of dimensional in nature. She's not coming out of the background and into the foreground in the same respect that he is. He's got a lot of I don't know how to say it, like motion from back to front, whereas she's just standing relatively in a two-dimensional manner. Most of her motion is left to right. She's looking off to her left down at the globe itself. So this effect works well on both sides, but it works better on the left. You'll kind of see what I mean by that as we go forward. There's a texture on top of him that's meant to make him look a bit more, less like a photo, and I don't know, more, give him sort of a more imperfect quality. And I've hidden that now, but it's that clipping mask right above the layer that we currently have selected, and that helps him to feel like a part of the stone behind him. We'll eventually bring that back. And now we're getting the shadows back in place. They do a lot. The shadows add a lot to this, and a decent amount of this video is getting the shadows right again. So there's a little part of his hand at the bottom, because if you just view his image unmasked, there's the one arm which we can see, and then there's the other arm which is sort of bent down towards the floor, and he's leaning on it. But just as easily, that arm could be like back in the background behind the globe, so we don't need to show the part of it that's sort of on the floor, so to speak, because it doesn't really make sense where it comes out. And right now I'm trying to see how, if possible, to make it seem as though the arm as well as the leg is chiseled into or out of that background texture. I don't think I make a lot of progress there, which is totally fine, because the leg does a lot of that work, and the arm can be seen as coming up in front of it. So yeah, we have a lot of nice dimension there. The new texture on the bottom left I really like. It just has the right, I don't know, level of sort of pitting and imperfection. It's just a gut decision. I mean, there's not anything quantifiable about it that makes it better. It's just a gut call. Just think it looks better, and I guess we could dig into why, but one thing you could say about it on the left as opposed to the right is that the imperfections are larger. It's zoomed in more, whereas on the right the imperfections are smaller. And I think those larger imperfections sort of serve the aesthetic of Diablo better than what's going on in the bottom right. So we'll bring both sides up to spec, so to speak. Now we're just messing with these ornaments, seeing if they make any sense. I don't think they do quite yet. They're best when, it looks kind of interesting there, but they're best to add once most other things are in the right place, and the other things right now are not in the right place yet. I keep thinking this gem arch is going to work there or somewhere like around the globe, just because its cutout is, like I said last time, almost the exact same shape as the globe. So it seems like it should make sense, but it for some reason doesn't work. So, that's okay. Totally fine. All right, so now we're beginning work on the right-hand side to get that to the same place. I think a lot of this stuff needs to be moved out of the way temporarily while we just move her and the mana globe down. Eventually I will make that realization. Yeah, it's trying some stuff with the ornaments. It's not really working yet. We'll get there for sure, but I think it's just too early to really be messing with that yet. But it's good to just, I don't know, you just move around the design. Don't get too caught up in any one thing. So it's fun just to move stuff around, see whatever you're inspired to do at any moment, just do it. Because what you're chasing is that inspiration, not the not any particular look in the design itself. You're never going to get any one thing exactly the way you want it. Just do what feels right at the time, and it'll eventually move in the right direction. A lot of the work in the beginning is slow and we're still at the beginning of this design, really early on in the whole, in context of the whole project of coming up with a still image from the next Diablo game. That's really what we want. If you were to take a snapshot of the next Diablo game gameplay interface, like just a second of the game itself, what does it look like? So we're going to create a lot more interface, probably like an interface and an inventory, and maybe and gameplay area. So how we're going to do all that is still up in the air, but I feel confident that we can. It's just a matter of getting there. So what that means is that we're really at the very beginning still, and work at the very beginning of a design is the hardest part, I think, because you don't have anything to lean on yet. We're just starting to get that first, I think, foundational building block of the design, and before you have that, it's really hard to build on top of anything. So don't try to get anything perfect yet. Just try to make enough progress so that you can move on to something else. And so that's where we are right now with the bottom left, and that texture that looks good, and that the demon looking good coming out from the back of there. That's all that to say that just messing around can really get you far. Don't take it too seriously. It's easy to, especially when it's your job. Luckily, this is not my job, so I can't. It's easy to not take it seriously, and I think that's what's making it so much fun, and that's what's making progress happen on a daily basis. So what we're able to do now on the bottom right is create a similar texture, but a texture that does not look duplicated, does not look too symmetrical. It's generally in shape symmetrical to the left, but different in form. Or different in texture, so in composition. So I think that really works. It's not perfect yet, but it's showing signs of working. The overall idea is showing signs of working. But you could see also how the effect on her side doesn't work as well as on his. I think that's what I'm pointing out here. And we work on that, and we think about why that is. And eventually I come to the conclusion that, as I said before, is because she's sort of two-dimensional. Not entirely, but compared to him, he is launching himself sort of out of the background into the foreground, whereas she is, okay, and we're finished for the day, whereas she is sort of flat and straight on. Thanks for watching. This is a really fun one. It's always great when there's one that, tangible progress is made, so it's fun to be able to talk through that, and I think the next video also, we take some big steps forward. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.